comments, Mr. Chairman, on my statement, which I believe was around the closure of the News of the World newspaper.
Before you get to that, I would just like to say one sentence. This is the most humble day of my life. Thank you.
That was Rupert Murdoch and one of his sons, James, testifying before British Parliament back in 2011 about a phone hacking scandal involving their UK publications. James Murdoch, once his father's close ally and the favorite to take over his family's conservative media empire, has since had a falling out with his now 93-year-old father and his older brother, Lachlan. Let's now bring in staff writer at The Atlantic, McKay Coppins. His latest piece is titled Growing Up Murdoch, which goes behind the scenes with the Murdoch family in the wake of a Nevada probate commissioner ruling that Fox will be split evenly upon Rupert Murdoch's death by his 4 oldest children, after Murdoch tried to make a change to the family trust that would block his more politically liberal children from taking control of the conservative media empire. McKay, good to see you this morning. Congratulations on the piece. I devoured it over the weekend. Couldn't put it down. You had extraordinary access to James Murdoch. Talk to us a little bit, if you will, about his evolution and this falling out with his father.
Yeah, so James Murdoch is Rupert's youngest son, and at various points in his life and career, he's actually been seen as the successor to the Murdoch empire fortune. He spent 20 years inside the companies, kind of playing the loyal lieutenant. He ran large portions of the company, but throughout his 20 years in the company, he became increasingly disillusioned with the way that his father was running these media outlets. And this is something we talked about a lot. Over the past year, we had more than a dozen interviews where he kind of vented about what he saw behind the scenes. He's now at a point where he believes that many of the Murdoch outlets, especially Fox News, are a blight on his family name, a menace to a democracy. And he believes that serious reforms need to take place to salvage these companies. And obviously, he sees things very differently from his father and older brother, who believe that they should stay the course and continue to kind of build this right-wing media empire around the world.
McKay, Elise here. I will second what Jonathan said, and this was just a riveting read. And at its core, I feel a very sad read, a sad, sad story. And what James' decision, he made this decision to come forward with his wife and to talk and to tell, more of their side of the story. And he's very sympathetic, and it just comes across that he finally acknowledged that maybe his relationship is never going to be what he wants it to be, and so he decided to talk. What do you make of why he decided to talk and his motivations?
Yeah, I'm glad you bring that up, Elise, because I'll tell you, I felt the same way. I mean, honestly, I approached him early last year on almost a lark. I didn't know if he would give me any access, let alone the kind of wide access that he ended up giving me. But what I found pretty early was that, yes, this is a political story. Yes, this is a business story. Yes, the stakes are pretty high for, global democracy. But it's also a really personal and painful story about the unraveling of this family. And, I think that James and his wife, Catherine, probably had various motives in talking to me. I write in the piece that they seemed at times kind of concerned about reputational management. They wanted to distance themselves from the Murdoch name in some ways. But I also think that James is somebody who spent a lot of his life studying dysfunctional dynasties in families like his, and he really wants to contribute a chapter to this literature. He thinks that the story of his family's unraveling, how it's been wrecked by power and money and greed, is something that he hopes future families can take a lesson from. He chronicled his father's twisted behavior. That's his word. He talked a lot about, how sad he is that he's at this point and late in his father's life where he's completely estranged from him. But at the end of the day, I think he really wanted to share the stories he'd seen, to share what he'd seen behind the scenes in a way that he never really had before. And I think in some ways it was cathartic for him.
So, McKay, you described the experience of James Murdoch being deposed by his father's lawyer with his father, Rupert, sitting in that very room. You write in part this: James sat across the table from his father and prepared to be deposed. For nearly 5 hours, Rupert's attorney asked James a series of withering questions. Have you ever done anything successful on your own? Why were you too busy to say happy birthday to your father when he turned 90? At one point, the attorney referred to James and his sisters as, quote, white privileged, multi-billionaire trust fund babies. James did his best to concentrate, but he couldn't help stealing glances at his father. Rupert sat slouched and silent throughout the deposition, staring inscrutably at his younger son. Every so often, though, he would pick up his phone and type. Finally, James realized why. He was texting the lawyer questions to ask, James told me. How, expletive, twisted is that? When the session ended, Rupert left the conference room without saying a word. And McKay, this certainly underscores just how sad this is, even at a moment where Rupert Murdoch's influence is at an all-time high with Trump's election. He was just simply in the Oval Office last week.
Yeah, that's right. And that's what I mean when I say that this is both an intensely personal story and also a really high-stakes story. And what's really at stake here is the future of this very powerful media company, right? James and his two sisters have been, to varying degrees, pretty open about what they see as the changes that need to take place at Fox News, at other Murdoch outlets, to make them responsible contributors to the global discourse. Rupert and Lachlan have resisted those changes. At one point, James was in place to take over after his father left. Rupert lobbied Lachlan, James's older brother, to come in and take his place because he didn't want to see those changes take place. And so really the question is going to be, when Rupert dies, who wins out? And I think that it's a story that's going to have enormous consequences going forward.
No question there. The must-read new piece is online now at The Atlantic. Staff writer McKay Coppins, thank you so very much.